All right, before we get to this video, this is my third video of the day. I don't know if you guys could tell, my voice is on its last legs. I'm not complaining. Just know that if you dislike the situation, please don't dislike the video because you're disliking my channel. Please like the video because your boy's putting in work for y'all. I'm also doing a huge giveaway for multiple copies of NBA 2K21 on my Instagram. And that's it. Cue the intro. Mic check 1 2 1 2. Today has been a truly historic day filled with a lot of turns, and if you happen to have been taking a crazy nap during this time, well, I got you covered with our previous video, which I'm gonna leave in the description down below. But to summarize, this all started when the Orlando Magic were supposed to face off against the Milwaukee Bucks in Game 5 of the first round in an Eastern Conference playoff matchup. Well, the Milwaukee Bucks didn't come out while the Orlando Magic were preparing at shoot-around time, which was a very powerful statement considering how the Jacob Blake shooting occurred in Wisconsin, which is the state where Milwaukee plays basketball games. So it was a very powerful statement for the Milwaukee Bucks to decide to not come out for the game, and then they eventually doubled down on it by completely boycotting the game. The game was postponed or boycotted, and the reason why I'm saying postponed or boycotted is because, well, LeBron James took some time to clarify the difference between the two, as you could see in front of your screen with this picture he posted onto his Instagram story. And when I saw this, I was like, okay, this might be a permanent boycott of the rest of the NBA bubble. Would LeBron James and all these teams that went through so much trouble to organize the bubble decide to completely sit out and cancel the rest of the season in order to protest? And there's arguments for both sides. For one, yes, it's very important to take some time to protest, to make sure everyone's aware of the current injustices occurring in the NBA. And I think they did a remarkable job by boycotting this upcoming game. But at the same time, the NBA gives these players an additional platform to have their voices heard. Imagine if there were no playoffs to begin with. There was no game for the Milwaukee Bucks to boycott. There would be no trend on Twitter about what the Milwaukee Bucks did, and we would not all be talking about what's going on right now. So there's an argument for both sides about how they should continue to go about this. Well, the Milwaukee Bucks, after boycotting their game, the Houston Rockets and the OKC Thunder, and eventually the Los Angeles Lakers and the Portland Trail Blazers decided to boycott their games respectively. This concluded with a statement by the NBA saying that tonight's games were postponed, where LeBron James took a picture of it and posted it onto his story and said, "Not postponed, boycotted." So after all the players elected to postpone the games, well, that's when things got interesting, because then we start to wonder, okay, is everything going to go back to normal tomorrow? Are we going to see our games played tomorrow? What's going to go on tomorrow? Well, afterwards, there was a statement that was made by the Milwaukee Bucks, where the Milwaukee Bucks had this to say.
The past 4 months have shed a light on the ongoing racial injustices facing our African-American community. Citizens around the country have used their voices and platforms to speak out against these wrongdoings. Over the last few days in our home state of Wisconsin, we've seen the horrendous video of Jacob Blake being shot in the back 7 times by a police officer in Kenosha, and the additional shooting of protesters. Despite the overwhelming plea for change, there has been no action. So our focus today cannot be on basketball.
When we take the court to represent Milwaukee and Wisconsin, we are expected to play at a high level, give maximum effort, and hold each other accountable. We hold ourselves to that standard, and in this moment, we are demanding the same from lawmakers and law enforcement. We are calling for justice for Jacob Blake and demand the officers be held accountable. For this to occur, it is imperative for the Wisconsin State Legislature to reconvene after months of inaction and take up meaningful measures to address issues of police accountability, brutality, and criminal justice reform. We encourage all citizens to educate themselves, take peaceful and responsible action, and remember to vote on November 3rd on behalf of the Milwaukee Bucks.
After that, what ended up happening was there was a decided meeting to take place at 8 p.m. Pacific time where all the players would convene and discuss what the fate of the NBA season would be. And there's a lot of things that go into it. It's more simple than should we protest or should we not protest? Because if you do this properly, then you can make a lot of noise and you could definitely do a lot of good in terms of raising awareness for the current injustices going on in our society. However, if you go too far and end up canceling the remainder of the bubble, then once again, your platform might be gone. So that's something I want you guys to bear in mind as they're doing this. So once the meeting commenced, there was a main vote that was put out, and it was the one question that remained on our minds. Would the rest of the season continue? Would the rest of the playoffs continue? How would the season conclude? Well, that's where it gets really sticky, because the next thing we hear, according to Shams Charania, in the middle of the meeting, the Los Angeles Lakers and the Los Angeles Clippers have voted to boycott the NBA season. Most other teams voted to continue, and then LeBron James exited the meeting after saying that LeBron James said that his rationale was the fact that he wanted owners to be more involved with what's going on. And then after that happened, the Los Angeles Lakers and the Los Angeles Clippers immediately exited the meeting. And then afterwards, the very next thing we hear is the fact that Udonis Haslem, which I'm still shocked he's in the NBA, by the way, but Udonis Haslem came out and said, what are we going to do if there's no Los Angeles Lakers and Los Angeles Clippers? How could you continue the playoffs if there's no LeBron James? If there's no Kawhi Leonard versus LeBron James? The entire NBA, the most influential man in the NBA, has elected not to continue. If the Lakers aren't going to play for the rest of the season, then how could you continue the NBA bubble? That's the one question we're all asking at this point. Now, what's even crazier is that every single team, besides the Lakers and the Clippers, voted to continue playing. And once again, LeBron James said in the meeting he wanted owners to be more involved and to take action. Now, the latest thing we got was the fact that this meeting actually gets really ugly because there was some frustration in the meeting towards the Bucks blindsiding on a walkout plan. The Bucks' George Hill admitted he first sparked conversation pre-game to boycott the game, and his teammates supported. So apparently there's some backlash towards the Milwaukee Bucks, and maybe, at least the vibe I'm getting from Shams Charania's latest tweet, there might be even some resentment towards the Milwaukee Bucks for not discussing the plan to boycott their upcoming game amongst the rest of the NBA. Now, that's not to say everybody felt this way. Some players wanted to hear the Bucks' explanation for making an abrupt decision independent of the rest of the teams to boycott the game. Whereas Boston's Jaylen Brown essentially said that the Bucks didn't need to explain themselves and he fully supported what they did today. But I kind of see both sides here because on one hand, I really respect and advocate for the cause that they're standing for, but at the same time, you're putting pressure on every other team to do the same. So I do see both sides of the argument here. Now, other things that occurred in the middle of this meeting was the fact that the players were trying to figure out how to take action. According to Chris Mannix, players spoke passionately about voting and police reform. And there's a sense from some that if owners don't come up with something that makes them believe staying will help move these important issues forward, this season is done. Woj also comes out to say that the Clippers and the Lakers vote wasn't necessarily a final vote. It wasn't considered as, hey, we're packing our bags and we're leaving the bubble immediately. Rather, it was more considered to be a polling of whether they would like to continue with the playoffs or not. And then Woj also said that discussions on continuing the season will extend into tomorrow. Sources tell ESPN, but it appears unlikely that the 3 playoff games on Thursday will be played because everyone is still too emotional and there needs to be more time to come together on this. Regardless on your stance on the situation, I don't think that there has been a more effective usage of a platform than what the Milwaukee Bucks did. Especially if they're starting to get some backlash, and maybe I'm interpreting some of those tweets incorrectly, but especially if they're starting to get some backlash from other members of the NBA, I think that this is truly a monumental moment in NBA history and in all of history, and an effective use of one's platform. I don't know, guys. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Make sure you have my notifications on and that you subscribed, because I'm going to be doing my best, and I'm probably going to be staying up all night to make sure I don't miss a single part of this story for y'all. I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next update.